Senator, this program from the start has had the best of intentions to help small businesses across the country. But we both know there's huge frustration. Many businesses are afraid to spend it because they don't know the rules. And now the Senate's taking a break. Aren't you worried that this is going to put them in a worse position?
I'm outraged, Stephanie. You know, we've been back in Washington 3 weeks, and Mitch McConnell didn't allow us to address the small business provisions in the CARES package, the Paycheck Protection Program, or the EIDL loans. An oversight hearing in the Small Business Committee. I've been requesting since we went back to Washington that the administrator of SBA and Secretary Mnuchin should come in. They should talk to us. They should give us the information about what's not working in this program and what is working so we can make decisions. And we need to do it now because, as you point out, our small businesses, who are the heart of our communities in New Hampshire, they're the foundation of our economy, and they need help.
How important is it to get an extension? A lot of recipients are already halfway through their exemption period.
Well, I think we need to do a couple of things. We do need to look at that 8-week period. You know, when we used 8 weeks, we didn't have as much information about what's happening with the coronavirus and how long it's going to take us to open back up the economy. We need to provide flexibility on that, either extend the period, change the way we're looking at it. The House has a provision that would allow 24 weeks instead of 8 weeks. We need to address that. We need to address the payback period. You know, I'm hearing from small businesses in New Hampshire, they got their loans, but they're really worried about what the payback is going to be because they haven't gotten clear guidance on that. Those are two things that we've really got to address, and we've got to do it ASAP. We should have done it, you know, that should have happened as part of the original guidance from the program.
All right, I want to talk about oversight because on both sides of the aisle, lawmakers want to know a lot about loans that were granted for $2 million or more. But I want to talk about the smaller ones. Last week, the Treasury Department said they would not pursue audits for any loan under $2 million. And they're basically saying, we assume they're good. These are not private loans, though. These are business loans. Why haven't we heard from any Republicans or Democrats demanding the loan IDs be public on every single SBA loan? Every other loan in their history is public. And this, we just keep getting rolled and rolled. And I don't hear any lawmakers demanding the loan IDs be public and transparent.
Well, again, that's why we need some oversight hearings. That's why, as a Small Business Committee, we've got to bring in Administrator Carranza, and we've got to get that information because it should be public. You know, there should be a screen that businesses have to approve, that banks have to approve for businesses to say that they really need this money. We've got to make sure that it doesn't go to businesses that don't need it, that it doesn't go to chain businesses like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. That's a critical piece of this program. It's designed to go to mom and pop, to the small businesses that are so much a part of our communities.
But even if it's for small businesses, telling people that you're not going to pursue anything under $2 million, but not make it public who received those loans is a recipe for fraud. Even if it's for $500 grand, $800 grand, every dollar counts. Will you be demanding to make it public?
Absolutely. We've got to make sure that the money is going to people who really need it, that it's going to the workers who need it, and that we help those businesses. The goal is to help businesses get through this period, to have workers who can go back to work when they're able to stand back up their businesses, and to give them some flexibility. You know, that 75-25 division, that wasn't part of what we talked about when we passed the legislation. That's been an arbitrary decision made by Treasury and SBA. We've got to take a look at what's going to be important to business and to their employees.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that you're going to push to make all of this information public. Can you tell us where we stand on the HEROES Act? Obviously, didn't make its way through the Senate. Will you be looking at it?
Well, I sure hope so. You know, I think all of us were disappointed that, as I said, we came back in on May the 4th. We thought we were going to be back in Washington to address further action to help people who are affected by this pandemic. And the fact that the HEROES Act passed the House, and we did nothing with it in this last week, is just a reflection of the lack of focus by the majority in the Senate on what we really need to do there to help the people who are hurting, the businesses who are hurting. We're not going to be able to stand back up our economy unless we help businesses and their employees, unless we can get the testing and the contact tracing to allow businesses to reopen, to make people feel safe when they go out. And that's what we should be working on in Washington, not a continuous list of judges and appointments.
Well, it sounds like you're going to continue to work on this, but maybe not another endeavor. You declined a request from former VP Biden's presidential campaign to be vetted as a potential running mate. Why?
You know, I'm incredibly honored to be mentioned by the vice president, to be on a list. And I'm going to do everything I can to help him get elected, the next president of the United States. I think he will be a great president. But my priority is to the people of New Hampshire. I am so grateful to have been able to represent them in the United States Senate. I hope they will give me that opportunity to continue to do that. I think it's important for us to take back the Senate, and I hope to be able to continue to represent New Hampshire. They are my priority.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.